Hey everybody, thanks for listening to the Whatcast.
We're still the Whatcast. We haven't changed our name yet.
Or ever.
Maybe, don't say ever. I still want to try out this Ycast thing.
I'm sure there's a show called the Ycast.
It'll confuse everybody. Or maybe the how, but we won't ever tell people how to do things, so it'll be completely deceiving. They're like, oh, the Howcast, I want to learn how to do things. And then they listen and it's just two dicks talking about fucking weird shit.
And they get angry and leave bad reviews.
Well, they would, I mean, can you blame them? We're just being jerks at that point. Welcome to the Howcast, where we don't tell you how to do anything. Fend for yourselves, fuckers.
How to alien.
This is how you alien. You can't because you're human. The end.
Please donate.
And that concludes another awesome edition of the Howcast.
And then 25 minutes of ads.
Yeah. You gotta have the 25 minutes of ads. You gotta make them ducats. Get that cheddar. Nah, I'm saying. Alright, enough fucking around. We have an episode to do.
All right, Mike, so curses right off the bat. That word makes me uncomfortable.
Why does it make you uncomfortable? Are you an old woman? He's saying them curse words again.
No, just the whole idea is scary. I mean, there's plenty of pretty good examples of people setting curses or suffering curses.
I don't buy it.
No.
No, you won't convince me.
How about the curse?
How about no?
How about the curse of King Tut's tomb?
I think it's bullshit.
Really?
I do. I totally think it's bullshit. But at this point, is that really that surprising that I think it's bullshit?
No, not really.
Yeah. But it is fun. It's really fun. I like the stories. I love the idea of something supernatural like that leaving some sort of curse behind. And I mean, even what we know from the Egyptian Book of the Dead, it's basically a spell book to protect the pharaoh's soul while he's traveling through the afterlife. And there's different spells and different incantations used for different points along his journey. So he's whoever's caring for him and putting together his spells, they're specifically designed for that pharaoh. There's not a set amount of spells or incantations that are used, and we found different spells in different pharaohs' tombs. So it seems like the spells that are put in place on the tomb are used for a purpose and selected specifically for that pharaoh. So whether they were customized, like the spell itself was created for the pharaoh, or whether they had this pool of spells that they were drawing from, and they would select the specific spells for each pharaoh. And we lost the origins of this original spell pool, and all we're left with are what was inscribed on the tombs. But if you remember back in the Necronomicon episode when we were talking about those hidden schools of magic and the occult, and how it was all based on oral tradition, and they weren't allowed to write these things down, and they weren't allowed to share them with the outsider. So it was all an oral thing that they would share among other people that they felt they could trust, or that were becoming initiated into those ways. So I think a lot of the spells probably came from those sorts of groups, and because it was oral tradition, all that we're left with are the inscriptions in the tombs of the pharaohs.
I definitely believe that there's a book or at least writings of procedures like that. I mean, granted, with every culture, the standard code is you don't disturb dead bodies, but just imagine if you came across tombs that were written in English, and they're all just like, nope, nope, don't do this. You'll die. You'll die. Get out.
Stay away, you dumb bastard.
Yeah.
Don't go in here, or your face will melt off your skull.
Clearly, the Egyptians took that shit seriously. So to me, that kind of lends a little bit of credence to them being able to do these curses.
But that's another thing though about King Tut's curse. It's always reported that there was a curse on his tomb, and the actual fact is that there isn't. There was never a curse on the tomb. There are guardian stones that have spells of protection on them, and they're aligned with the cardinal directions, northeast, southwest, and they've got incantations on them that are used for protecting the soul of the pharaoh. The thing with King Tut's tomb is he's got a fifth one, which is not normal. There's not typically 5, because it's usually the 4 that just align with the cardinal directions. So he's got this 5th one, but we don't know why.
That's the fuck you stone, dude. He's the only one who could afford.
That's the one?
Yeah. Paid some guy
like, you know what? No, I need a fuck you stone. Give me that fuck you stone. So the thing about King Tut is he was young when he died, and
17, right?
Yeah, or they think around there, late teens is what they believe. But his father, or maybe it was his uncle, it's disputed, was Akhenaten, who anyone who watches Ancient Aliens knows is the alien pharaoh. And he's the guy, if you've ever seen the statues with the pharaoh with the really long face and the long head, like the back of his head is really long, that's Akhenaten. And he wasn't very well loved among the ancient Egyptians. He got rid of the monotheistic religion and brought in the worship of one god, Aten. And he was depicted as a sun disk, typically. Sometimes it was a sun disk with wings. And again, if you're familiar with Ancient Aliens, they're claiming that was the symbol of Aten, because he was actually an alien, and Akhenaten was his half-breed son, or something along those lines. But it is interesting because there are depictions of him, and he was apparently well known for encouraging artwork during that period of time to be as realistic as possible. And all the depictions of him show him with these strange features, the elongated head and face and pointed features, and pot belly, and these weird legs that like little tiny chicken legs for the ankles, and then they just blow out into these huge legs in the thighs. He's got a strange body type. So, I can see what they're saying with him, like being like, oh, he's an alien hybrid, because he looks different than all other depictions of pharaohs. And we've never conclusively found his body. Actually, right across from where King Tut is, there was this tomb that was long thought to be Akhenaten. But after examination of the body that was found there, it was determined that body was of a person in their 20s. And Akhenaten, I can't remember what age he died, but it would have been considerably older than that. But this tomb had like all sorts of crazy shit. Like I can't remember the exact quotes, but it was basically like things warning against letting the evil out of the tomb. So it's kind of ominous. But that's right across from King Tut's tomb.
Did that guy have a fuck you stone?
We don't know who. There's nothing to indicate who this guy was. It was almost like he was somebody that they wanted to forget. Like what if he was like some sort of crazy vampire or something, and they just locked him in his sarcophagus and then locked the tomb, and he just starved to death.
That would be awesome.
And then they have this warning of don't let him out, because he'll feast on your blood and turn your daughter into a vampire.
She'll get all slutty.
Nobody wants either of those things. Yeah, well, I mean that's what vampires do, isn't it? They just kill people and act slutty. This goes for both genders. Vampires are notoriously promiscuous, except for like Dracula because he was in love. But that's, stupid romantic storytelling. I shouldn't say stupid. It's like a classic story that's awesome and everybody loves it. But it's a romance story with horror elements when you really get down to it. But I digress. We're talking about King Tut's tomb here. Do you know the story of the unveiling of King Tut's tomb?
Yeah, I'm a big history nerd, so I really liked researching all this stuff about King Tut. But one dude named George Herbert, who was an archaeologist, Egyptologist, and the 5th Earl of Carnarvon, wherever the fuck that is. These are all British dudes, so. He had tasked fellow archaeologist and Egyptologist Howard Carter with excavations of what they called the Noble Tombs in 1907. And he did that for many years. In 1914, the Earl guy, George Herbert, received permission to dig in the Valley of the Kings. And again, he put Howard Carter in charge of this project. But by 1922, Herbert lost interest in the Valley of the Kings after years of Carter's digs not producing anything significant. But in November of that year, 1922, the site's water boy tripped over a stone that ended up being a set of stairs that led them down to King Tut's tomb. Immediately, there's bad omens about them even finding this place. Carter had sent a messenger to his house, where the messenger, upon entering the house, found a cobra inside of the cage of his pet canary. And we're all familiar with Tut's cobra on his head, the crown crest type thing.
Yeah.
Well, the symbol of the cobra was a sign of the Egyptian monarchy, and it was set there on his forehead to be able to strike at enemies or anybody who entered his tomb. So the whole thing just started bad. The workers at the dig site were freaked out by that because for them, the locals, that was a straight up warning. Now, there was a inscription right outside the tomb, something about death comes on quick wings. Do you know anything about that?
No, I don't. But that could be part of an incantation for the pharaoh, and it just sounds ominous. But I mean, really, you're dealing with the body of a dead pharaoh, so you would mention the fact that death came to him, and that is part of admission into the afterlife. After all,
what a better way can you think of to activate the fuck you stone inside of the tomb? You put the activation incantation on the wall.
Yeah. So that's the first thing they read. They're like, "Death comes on swift wings," and then the fuck you stone inside just starts glowing and humming, and they're just hacking away at the wall trying to get in. And it's getting bigger and brighter, and as soon as they open it, it's like a gust of wind whoosh, rushes out over them. And then it's silent because the fuck you stone has been activated and they're all fuck you'd.
Yep.
Every last one of those sons of bitches. You're all fucked, fuckers.
I guess the inscription was, I looked it up, death shall come on swift wings to him who disturbs the peace of the king.
See, there you go. You don't defile the bodies of kings because they were imbued with the power of the gods of Egypt. They were considered almost like their avatar in a way on Earth.
Do you think that as science has gone on, that there's not thousands of curses just flying all over the place is because instead of maybe the age of dissecting these mummies is past and we're into the age of conserving them, not defiling them, not disrespecting the body?
I don't know. Have you ever heard of this? It could just be like one of those old bullshit legends, but that like in the 1800s, maybe it was the 1700s, aristocrats would get mummies and have mummy burning parties.
What?
You never heard?
No.
All right. So what they would do, this was during the Victorian era, they would have mummy unrolling parties, which is pretty much, it speaks for itself. They would get a mummy and they would unwrap it during the party.
God damn.
Yeah. And it was was considered a social event among aristocrats in Britain in the 1820s.
Wow.
And it was started by a circus performer named Giovanni Belzoni, and he was kind of famous for having
personality of a total asshole.
No, he would arrange for the removal of a lot of artifacts from Egypt on behalf of Britain. And so a lot of people in those social circles that were into Egypt were like really, they stayed close to this guy because he could get the shit. So
you've got that mummy shit.
On one occasion, he decided to have a mummy unwrapping party, and over 2,000 people attended it. And he attracted a bunch of people, and one of them was a surgeon who was so into this idea that he began having his own unrollings, and he would accompany it with a lecture. He'd give a lecture while people would come and unroll a mummy, and they would have to. He sold tickets for it, so you'd have to buy a ticket. Yeah, so not exactly mummy burning, but pretty close.
They just must have had like mummies by the dozen if they're doing that shit.
Yeah, any mummies they found, they're just like, you know what, yoink, I'll just gank a couple here, have mummy unrolling party. But you also have to understand back then, like, Britain was waving its dick all over the place, and they could get away with stealing artifacts and shit like that. People would get arrested for that shit now.
Yeah.
Like, that's defiling artifacts, and that's, yeah, you'd get in a lot of trouble for that.
They have special jails for people who fuck with history shit.
It's history jail.
This fall on ABC.
Every day you just wake up and write in a book, those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it over and over, 12 hours a day. And that's what you do.
Well, we should probably talk about the curse of King Tut, because it's sometimes called Curse of the Pharaohs. So does that mean there's other pharaohs?
Yeah, there were a few different pharaohs, I guess, that had tomb curses. There was one, the Tomb of Cantika. There was a warning on it that said, any ruler who shall do evil or wickedness to this coffin may Hemen was one of the local gods. May Hemen not accept any goods he offers, and may his heir not inherit. And then there was the Tomb of Cantika, and that's got a inscription on it that says, as for all men who shall enter this my tomb impure, there will be judgment. An end shall be made for him. I shall seize his neck like a bird. I shall cast the fear of myself into him.
Whoa, that one's creepy.
Yeah, that one's pretty intense.
Yeah, the first one's a lot more calmer than the King Tut's fucking you're gonna die. But that one almost sounds like he's saying he's gonna possess you or something.
I will cast the fear of myself into him.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, with this curse of King Tut's tomb, there was a bunch of people who actually ended up dying pretty relatively and consistently, I might add, after they exhumed King Tut's body or mummy. The first to go was the Earl himself. George Herbert died 4 months after opening the tomb from blood poisoning after he cut open a mosquito bite that was on his cheek while shaving that became infected, so he died of blood poisoning.
See, already, the fact that someone dies at 4 months later, I'm saying bullshit on the curse. Like, what kind of curse is that? Don't fuck with the coffin or you'll die. 4 months later. Like, how is that effective? Like, at that point, the damage has been done.
Well, that's the thing about a curse. It's always for something after the damage has been done. There's no real preemptive curses. Like,
even if it was like a week later, okay, I'll say curse is starting to take hold here. But 4 months, and then everybody comes after 4 months. Come on. All right, I'm sorry. I don't mean to steal the magic out of this after the first one. I'll let you continue.
Well, there are some deaths that you can call bullshit on them being linked to.
Oh, and I will.
But there's some that are weird, and we'll get to those. But
Okay.
Coincidentally, examination of King Tut's mummy revealed that he had a similar mark on his cheek. And it was also found that King Tut was infected with malaria at the time of his death. And there's a rumor that when George Herbert died, his dog back in England let out a howl and dropped over dead at pretty much the same time he died.
Oh, man. So the mummy hates pet dogs too, then.
Well, maybe he's just that serious about not fucking with his body. Like,
Well, what'd the dog do, Mateo?
Doesn't matter.
What did the dog do? It does matter. It wasn't the dog's fault. King Tut's just a dick. Or whoever put the cursed fuck you stone in there. That guy's a dick. Leave the dogs alone.
maybe like the inscription was like, and your fucking dog too, on the fuck
I'll
you stone.
get you, my pretty, and your little dog too. Yeah. I guess King Tut was a cat guy.
All the Egyptians were, right?
Yeah, but look at Anubis. He had a jackal head.
Yeah. But the next to die was a dude named George J. Gould, who visited King Tut's tomb in 1923, and he shortly after developed a fever and suddenly died. The Earl's half-brother, Aubrey Herbert, became blind after visiting the tomb in 1923, and then died from blood poisoning received from a dental visit.
So King Tut can haunt dentists as well? Is there no one who's safe? He'll get you at the dentist.
You're not safe if you fucked with his tomb.
Oh man. He won't even let you get your teeth cleaned. You're fucked.
Yeah.
He'll blind you and then make you go to the dentist to kill you. Instead of making you fall down the stairs or something. You'll die at the dentist.
Well, next dead, the extraction team's radiologist responsible for x-raying Tut's mummy, Archibald Douglas Reed, died in 1924 due to what they list as a mysterious illness. Next, Sir Lee Stack, Governor General of Sudan, was assassinated in November of 1924. So that's 2 and 24. Evacuation team member A.C. Mace died in 1928 from arsenic poisoning.
Can we just pause right there and say how awesome of a name A.C. Mace is?
Dude, I thought the same thing.
Like, that sounds like an 80s action hero.
Yeah, or like a Ninja Turtle like friend.
A.C. Mace is back, and this time he's not taking any guff. He's here to kick a little terrorist butt. And he's not going to apologize. Then it zooms in and he says some awesome catchphrase. And he's probably got like a toothpick in his mouth. And then he shoots the guy in the face.
I'm in. Sunday morning cartoon version right now. Well, next was George Herbert, the Earl's half-brother, Mervyn Herbert. He died in May of 1929.
And then we go to a name like Mervyn Herbert. From A.C. Mace to Mervyn Herbert. I mean, it's probably not cool because I'm making fun of a man who died from a curse, but your name is fucking Mervyn Herbert.
Well, he died in May of 1929 from malarial pneumonia.
He was Aubrey Herbert's brother, the one who went blind and got murdered by a dentist.
Yeah, that was his full brother. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't go to dentists after invading some tombs, I guess.
Ah.
Or don't do anything. Don't be named A.C. Mace either, because
he didn't make it either.
No. A.C. Mace in the Pharaoh's Curse. You'll never get me this time, King Tut. And he throws a hand grenade into the tomb.
Howard Carter, the guy who discovered the tomb, his personal secretary, Richard Bethel, was found smothered to death in his bed in 1929. He was present at the tomb's opening. His father, Richard Luttrell Bethel, he jumped off the 7th story of his flat in 1930, and his place was full of artifacts from King Tut's tomb that previously belonged to his son. His suicide note included the line, "I cannot bear any more horrors."
So maybe he was being haunted.
Maybe, yeah. That could be part of the curse. Howard Carter had also given a mummified hand wearing a bracelet to his friend Bruce Ingham. And on this bracelet, the inscription said,
"Fuck you."
Fuck you. Put my hand back in now, fucker. It said, "Cursed be he who moves my body. To him shall come fire, water, and pestilence." I think about a month later, his house caught on fire. And as soon as he was done repairing it, his house was destroyed by a flood.
Interesting.
A dude named Hugh White, the archaeologist tasked with excavating Tut's body, hung himself, leaving a note stating, "I have succumbed to a curse which forces me to disappear."
Wow, that's a weird way to word things.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
When I read that, I understood it. I got it. But when I was writing my notes and I had to write it out, I was like, that's fucking weird. But those are most of the well-known cases. All in all, there are about 11 deaths of people directly involved with the discovery of King Tut's tomb.
You know what's weird, though? That people die in real life, too.
and this is within 10 years, so...
And I've even seen people try to link Howard Carter, but he didn't die till 39, and he died of fucking Hodgkin's disease.
Yeah.
So it's ridiculous. But yeah, I'm calling bullshit on the whole thing. I don't care. 10-year time period, whatever. It's the thing that I find more interesting is the amount of people that were murdered.
Really?
That were associated. Yeah. So you got the guy who's assassinated, Sir Lee Stack. You've got A.C. Mace, who died of arsenic poisoning. Richard Bethel, who was smothered to death.
Mm-hmm. There's a prince who was shot, I think in 27 by his wife. She killed him.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Prince Ali Kamal Bey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's weird. Like, why I find that one less mysterious than the other ones.
Very true.
Because this one could have just been like his wife got really just fed up with his bullshit and shot. Who knows?
Well, even if these are people who are being assassinated for whatever reason, be it opening up King Tut's tomb, you got to admit that's a lot within a 10-year span of the small group of people who are involved with this.
Do I have to admit that, though? Because I'm not going to admit that that's a lot of people to die over a 10-year period.
To get murdered, though? Not 10 people, but just...
To get murdered? Yeah, but they were also involved in excavation of things in Egypt. So there could have been any number. Maybe they were smuggling artifacts and somebody didn't like it. Maybe they were trying to set up a deal where they could sell some shit off. And the dude's like, I'm just going to murder you instead. I mean, there could have been any number of reasons. Maybe they discovered something that somebody didn't want known. And so they were killed to keep quiet.
I would like to think of an Indiana Jones like group that had like their own army that would protect the sacred bodies of the king. So they just snuffed out assholes who fucked with them.
Yeah, it was like the fuck, what's that movie called? Come on,
The Mummy.
No, it has nothing to do with mummies. The one with Eric Bana. Where he's going and killing Iranians.
Oh God, I don't know.
The one about the Olympic thing. With
okay.
Israel. Munich. Yeah,
that's what it was. So
these guys are like the Egyptian versions of Munich. After these guys fucked with everything, they just spent the next 10 years murdering everybody. But instead of doing it in cool ways, like calling them and rigging a bomb to their phone. So when they answer it, they explode all over the place. They made it look like a curse. And then smothered a dude. And then paid off the dentist to murder his patient.
Just inject him with a dirty-ass needle.
Yeah. Here, just use this needle while you're working on it. You'll never know what's in the needle. It's better if you don't know. And he didn't know. And then he died. By dental surgery.
Well, he was having the procedure done to hopefully restore his eyesight.
Yeah, he was, but that didn't matter.
No, but it wasn't like he had a
his dentist was a murderer.
But it wasn't like he had a cavity and it was just like a routine dental visit.
His dentist was a murderer. Anyway, I don't think that this thing is as cursey as everyone thinks it is. I think it's a lot of matter of coincidence. People die. Sometimes it's weird and tragic ways, and especially if it's a mysterious death, it's easier to have a story to go with it. Like, oh, your grandfather died of the mummy's curse. And then your grandkids like, oh my God, my grandpa died from a mummy's curse. And then that's a story that gets spread through your family, and it's awesome. It's a fun story.
They just live horribly paranoid lives. I'm going to die sooner than later because of a mummy's curse.
Does the curse go down the generations? We don't know, but we'll find out. Oh no. But the King Tut's tomb, did you hear about how long? Like, I think it's 2015, but they thought they found a secret chamber, or evidence that there was a secret chamber.
That popped up a little bit in my research, but I didn't read into it. I was trying to focus on what I was doing. Tell me about that.
So in 2015, there was this guy, his name was Hirokatsu Watanabe, and he was using a ground penetrating radar system to look for hidden chambers. I guess it came about because someone was examining pictures of the artwork on the walls, and they thought they saw an indentation that could be indicative of a hidden chamber. So they brought in the ground penetrating radar, and they announced that they found hidden doorways on the north and west walls of the burial chamber. Now, this was talked about on Ancient Aliens. They were proposing on Ancient Aliens that this could be the secret tomb of Akhenaten. Because like I mentioned, there was that tomb across the way that they originally thought was Akhenaten, and then it was proven incorrect.
Right.
And so I think that's what they're proposing. And of course, they're proposing that the curse is a result of some alien technology from some otherworldly device. But I've also heard people make the claim that some of the curse was this bacteria that had gone undisturbed. So some of the people that died as a result of breathing this in. It just took years for it to actually kick in. I think that's more plausible, but I also think that's bullshit because, a lot of these people were murdered. And why would it take so long for an illness to all of a sudden appear and be like, hey, unless it was like some sort of particulate that had an effect, like how smoking affects you. It's, you can smoke for decades and you're fine, but then it catches up with you and you're coughing up fucking black lung butter.
Yeah.
So maybe it was something along those lines. But I think that would be more likely for some of the mysterious illness cases. But anyway, this was legit news. It was picked up by National Geographic, the Discovery Channel, all that. This isn't just a flight of fancy from Ancient Aliens. But in 2016, National Geographic funded another test of the ground penetrating radar. And they weren't able to find the chambers that time around. So there was a group that met, a group of scientists that met, and one of the ministers of Egypt commissioned a tiebreaker, basically. So in February 2018, there were 3 independent teams that were called in, and each used a different frequency with the ground penetrating radar. One used high, one was medium, one was low. So the high frequency is used to provide detailed results for distances as deep into the ground as 7 feet. So you don't get much penetration, but you get a very clear picture. And then the lower end of the spectrum, it can penetrate deeper into the ground, but your results aren't as detailed. So they ended up getting a research team from the Polytechnic University of Turin, and they worked for 7 days just doing scans of the chamber. And they collected enough data on the walls that it would have, if laid out, it would have been 1.6 surface miles for everything that they covered over these 7 days with this radar.
Wow.
Yeah. So then they had a team of experts review the results, and then they came together and they all cross-checked the results of each other and what they were looking at in the readings. And there were no evidence of any doors or empty spaces beyond the funeral chamber for at least 13 feet. So if there is a chamber, it would be more than 13 feet into the wall. So they explain it away as being rogue radar reflections. And they said under normal conditions, something like this wouldn't happen, which is why apparently it occurred the other two times where there was no evidence of a secret wall or door or chamber or anything. But they believe that the paint that was used on the plaster created conditions that would allow it to conduct electricity. So when the radar hit it the first time, it kind of hit this area and jumped across the wall in this area, which created a ghost signal. King Tut's sarcophagus is also made of quartzite, so they're thinking that could have also caused a reflection as well.
Mm-hmm.
But initially, after the first finds that showed a chamber back there, they thought that it could have been Nefertiti's tomb, because as of yet that remains unfound. After these other two, they're saying it's conclusive that there's nothing back there. But what's kind of interesting is after the initial findings in 2015, there was a team of archaeologists that were given the go-ahead to dig a tunnel on the other side of the wall, so they wouldn't have to ruin the wall, but they were going to dig a tunnel in to see if they could get to the other side of the wall and look at that chamber. And they were given permission to do it, but shortly before excavation began, it was completely canceled. And there's lots of evidence of Egyptian authorities covering things up. For instance, did you know that there is actually a chamber inside the Sphinx?
No, I thought that was just hearsay.
No, there's a door on its back. And that for a while, Zahi Hawass denied that it was even there, but there's photographic evidence of him there. And then he allowed them to film down, and it's a shaft that's going straight down. And he claims that once you get to the bottom, there's nothing there but an empty chamber. So that's kind of interesting. And then there's this other chamber in a pyramid on the side of the pyramid that he claims is just a small little opening on the other side of the pyramid. But when you look in there, it looks like a chamber that turns, and you can't see beyond where the turn is. There's also a photograph of him going into it, so it's not just a little indentation area or something. It's big enough that a full-grown man can fit in there. So it's at least under Zahi Hawass. But he's been brought up for corruption charges and was stripped of his title of Minister of Antiquities. So, he's not exactly the most trustworthy source.
When did that happen? I didn't know he got in trouble.
Yeah, it was after the uprising in Egypt.
Wow.
He was ousted shortly after the new government came into power.
He was always problematic, right?
Yeah, he was always one that he would claim to be all about finding out the things, but he was also the one to toe the line for traditional academic thinking in regards to Egypt. Like, he was the major force against the water erosion theory around the Sphinx enclosure.
Mm-hmm.
And he was going to debate Graham Hancock. You can watch it on YouTube. And I don't even think the debate officially started, but maybe it did. Maybe it got a few minutes into it but he ended up just leaving, just walking right out, because Graham Hancock was bringing up like Göbekli Tepe and how that dates back like 12,000 years. And he was using that as an argument, stating that this thing is a wonder of archaeology, and this existed before we even thought civilization existed. And you can't tell me that this was the work of hunter-gatherers when you're going to need a united force to make something on that scale. So he was using that as an example that there were megalithic structures that existed before 10,000 years ago. And I think their theory is, 12,500 years ago is their theory for the Sphinx. But Zahi Hawass wouldn't even consider it. Like, he got all argumentative when he brought up Göbekli Tepe, and he's like, I don't know anything about it. It's not about Egypt, so I don't care. And he's like, well, I'm using this as an example. He's like, no, and then he just like storms out. Just like a Zahi Hawass debates Graham Hancock. And you'll see how much of a baby he is. He won't even talk about it. He just walks out. And I mean, that just shows, how can you be someone that's claiming to be trying to uncover the secrets of the past, and you can't even have a civilized conversation with someone who has a differing view on what's going on than you.
Wow.
Like you're that much of an egotistical bastard that you can't handle it, and you just run out.
So whoever's in that position now, have they done anything to show signs of that being more open to more exploration?
No, they did. They found that the coffin, and they opened that
with the black goo coffin.
Yeah, the black goo and the pieces of the skull. But I haven't heard of any other like astounding discoveries other than that. But I think it's weird, like when they find stuff like that it's like, it's not just like, it should be something that's streamed live, available for everyone to see. Just open up a YouTube channel and stream that shit live. Yeah,
no kidding.
Like I remember when they were cracking into Gattenbrink's door in the Great Pyramid, and it was live on the National Geographic channel, and it was fucking awesome. Even if it was just like the Al Capone's glove compartment thing, nothing's there, but it was still really cool because it was something that I had been reading about a few years before, and I found it to be extremely interesting. And then they finally were able to figure out a way to drill a small hole and look beyond it, and they're like, oh shit, it's another set of doors. What to do now? But I thought that was cool, and I wish they would do that for a lot of these things. But then again, maybe we'd all be witness to an evil curse. And anyone who was watching it, the curse is so powerful that anyone who even witnessed the opening of the tomb becomes cursed.
Ooh.
Maybe that's why they don't do it. Maybe they know how powerful these wizards are.
Yeah. They know the truth about other mummies that they found and other tombs that they opened, and how everybody just instantly turn into liquid.
Instantly. Like, oh, you will turn into black liquid, and you will get bitten by a mosquito in the face, and you will get murdered by a dentist. And you have a really awesome name, AC Mace. But you are no match for me. Here's a little arsenic.
Yeah. Curses are pretty scary to me, though. I'm not into curses. I don't think I would enter if there was an inscription that said, death comes for he on quick wings who fucks with the king. I don't think I would have walked in there.
Don't fuck with
the
the king.
Would you have entered, even if reading a warning like that?
Absolutely. Especially that when they first cracked into it and peeked in, and he said, I see wonderful things inside. Like, oh my God, I need to get in there and see wonderful things. What are they?
Yeah, when they dug down those stairs and actually found the entrance to the tomb, he stopped and got the Earl there, and he was like, all right, everybody. Yeah. And he just chiseled away a small part in the corner and looked in. That had to be exciting. That had to be cool.
Oh, yeah. That must have been awesome. And just imagine, just you're not the one who looks in, but you just see his reaction to it. That's got to be even more exciting. Like, oh my God, he's so pumped right now. I can't wait to see what's in there. But you know what's in there? There's a fuck you stone in there, and it's ready to fuck you.
Thank you for listening to the Whatcast. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, iTunes, and YouTube. Enjoy the podcast. Get yourself a Whatcast t-shirt or a sticker pack. Who was that dude on that one episode? Try the links in Homie's page. All this and more can be found at www.thewhatcasters.com. Thanks again for listening and have a great week.